An active shooter event isn't the only problem we could face. It's a big one, and certainly in the news all the time, but there's other things that could happen too. What about the mugging? What about the rioters? What about the protesters? Is there any chance? Good question, huh? Are there any chance that you might be mugged? Any chance you might find yourself in the middle of a riot? Maybe that was something else that went bad. Any chance any of those things could happen? And we have to answer, well, yes. None of us are immune from an obstacle. None of us are immune from an ambush. And so, for goodness sakes, if that should happen, what's your plan? Well, what a good question, huh? What's your plan? And so Ed Monk will be back on our stage talking about what we can do to create that plan, the plan where you'll have something to do. Without a plan, I can tell you how it's going to turn out. Probably not to your benefit. So here it is. We're going to take a look at rioters, muggers, and other problems. Take a look. I'm back in the studio again today with Ed Monk. And Ed's coming to our conference this fall, and we're looking forward to having you there. In fact, if we're going to have you at conference, we've got some other things we'd like to ask you about. You seem to be a wealth of knowledge on a lot of things that are important to us. And so one of those things that are important to us is that traveling outside the home. Could there be a mugger? Yes. What do you think? Don't you watch the news? Could there be a rioter? Yes. Could there be a protester? Yes. How do we handle ourselves in those circumstances? Should we stumble into a protest? There's a riot going on. What do we do? What information can you give us if you're coming to conference? What can we look forward to for that?
Well, at last resort, we teach our students for the armed citizen, there's basically three people you may have to use deadly force against outside your home. By far, statistically, most likely is the mugger, which we call the parking lot experience, because it's most likely going to take place in the parking lot of a convenience store, a Walmart, a movie theater, a grocery store. Everybody comes to those places. The lion sits by the water hole waiting on his prey to come to that, and the mugger sits in a parking lot to select his victim. So that's part of what we'll talk about with the mugger is how they select their victims, because the famous saying, the only gunfight I can guarantee you can win is the one you don't get into. So avoidance is the absolute best option. So how to be aware that they're out there, how to watch for them, how to get deselected. He may sit in that parking lot for 4 hours waiting to find the person he wants to attack. The goal is he looks at you and says, "Nah, that's not my guy. That's not my gal," and keep looking, because then there's no chance of a physical fight that could get you hurt. There's no chance of a legal battle after, even if you win the physical fight. So we look at muggings and what to expect, because you don't know how to prepare mentally and physically and gear wise and tactic wise, skill wise, until you define the fight that's coming. So you can do that. What to expect? That it's very close. The need for speed and decision making and skill will be big. Awareness is just a big part of it, and it's not being paranoid. It's just playing a game of who's around me and what are they doing. I play that game every time I go to Walmart. Who's around me and what are they doing? Because if you have if you know how they hunt, how they select, and how they engage in the muggings, then you know what to look for and how to avoid that if at all possible. And if you can't avoid it, because by God, they picked you and they're just going to have you as their victim today, having 1, 2, or 3 seconds head start warning that you have just been picked and this thing's about to go down gives you a huge advantage. So we'll show you how they think, how they pick, why they're doing what they're doing, and that helps you understand your opponent and get prepared for them. And then the skills for that is they're going to be very close. You're going to have a hard time explaining to the prosecutor why you shot a mugger at 28 yards. They're going to come to you. So the saying is sometimes we go to the circus, sometimes the circus comes to us. The mugger is looking for a victim, so he is going to come to us. And it's not, well, I'll avoid bad areas. We all have to get gas. We all have to get diapers. We all have to get food. So we have to go to grocery stores and all these places. And that's where they hunt. So if it interacts, one thing that I find people, you talked the last time we talked about the aha moment is, are you ready to start a fight? And they'll say, oh, I don't plan on starting any fight. Well, if you're mugged and that mugging turns kinetic, there is a fight. You will start it probably. The mugger will start the confrontation will start the interaction with a threat of force, probably by displaying a weapon and demanding something from you. Give me your keys, give me your wallet, give me whatever, give me your phone. That's a threat of force, but it hasn't gone kinetic yet. If there's actually physically force involved, then you're probably going to start it. So that's the first hurdle mentally that a lot of people have to get over. And of course, you'll be behind the power curve. He's already got his weapon out. He's probably used violence before. A lot of good people have not yet. They've trained to do it, but they haven't done it yet. So you'll be kind of behind the power curve. You'll be at a disadvantage. How you overcome that is surprise, right? He wouldn't have picked you if he thought you were armed and you would use it to hurt him. So transitioning from the scared person he picked that's not going to be a problem for him, that's going to give him what he wants, and then transitioning if you choose that that's the best thing for you to do to fight, you have to be able to do that quickly, so that there is surprise. So your skill of getting the gun out of concealed holster is absolutely a must-have skill that a lot of people that get concealed carry licenses or that carry with or without a license in the public have not trained to do, to draw their gun quickly out of concealment on command. They've got to do that. And then we'll talk about the aftermath, both mentally and physically, tactics for the aftermath, but then also legally. So what to say and what not to say, 911, and how to best protect your legal rights, your liberty, and your money if this guy, the mugger, forces you to use physical force against him. So that's kind of the stuff we'll talk about the mugger. But by far, most likely outside your home, that would be it. The other thing that we've talked about earlier that I'll talk about there, one of the second ones, is the active shooter. You could be in your church, dropping your kid off for school, at your place of work, at a Walmart, at a grocery store, which is a rising place, when an active shooter just happens to kick off there. And if you choose to fight, um, what we'll do there. The, with the active shooter, one of the best things is the legal scrutiny is extremely low. I can't name one cop or one citizen who shot an active shooter who's been arrested, much less charged, much less prosecuted, much less convicted. Um, Not yet. Now, if you do something wrong, like shoot the wrong person, all bets are off. But so far, it just appears to be with the active shooter, the sentiment is he needed to go, and we're not going to get real picky about how many shots you fired or under what conditions. He was an obvious, deadly, immediate threat, and you took care of him. And we're not going to ask a lot of questions. Now, the third person that we may have to use force against outside the home is the exact opposite in legal scrutiny, and that's the rioter, violent protester. That is the worst legal scrutiny, to the point where you could everything you do to resist them could be not just barely within the line, but completely logical, reasonable, legally justified. But these rioters and violent protesters do not do their work. They do not start riots and violent protests in legal jurisdictions where the prosecutors would be in your favor and not in theirs. You don't see a lot of riots in the conservative counties of Oklahoma. They're generally going to do their job, riot and violent protest, in legal jurisdictions where they believe they have the sheriff, the chief of police, and the prosecutor on their side. So even if you do everything that any reasonable person would say you were very reasonable, justifiable, ethically, morally, everything, but you'll still get arrested, you'll still get charged, you'll still get put on trial. You may get acquitted, but the process is the punishment. You know, you spend how many, they wouldn't give you bail, or they set it so high you couldn't make bail, so you're in jail. You've lost your job because of that. The media is going to be 100% against you, including social media. And then uh, the cost of good legal representation, which is what you want, is hundreds of dollars an hour for all the prep leading up to the court, as well as the court, as well as your trial. So we want to try to avoid that. Everything about the rioter is bad information for us good people. Um, the legal scrutiny is horrible, and that's one of many reasons we want to try to avoid the getting in any kind of confrontation with the rioter, if at all possible. Um, Legal scrutiny is against you. The numbers are against you. The mugger, there will be one mugger. He may have one other person, maybe a getaway driver, there with him. By definition, riot and violent protesters, there's a whole bunch of them there. And you have to understand why they're doing what they're doing. They want two things. One is to intimidate you and others, to get you to do things differently than you would want, to stop doing something, to leave an event you wanted to be at. but they also want to cause you to fight them, which is exactly opposite. The mugger doesn't want to fight. He just wants to threaten you, get your stuff, and leave. The rioters, you got to understand, they are trying to antagonize you into fighting them, which they will have on their cell phone videos, which they will then give to the police and the prosecutor in that jurisdiction who's very supportive of them. And that's what they'll use to arrest you, charge you, drag you through the court system. So
Wow.
there's no way to win this. The only way you should ever get violent with these people is if that is the only way to survive. And we'll talk about that and get into it in the fact that very quickly, any resistance that we give a riot or violent protester, these aren't individuals out there for their own purpose. These are organized, trained people that have a process. Uh, any resistance from rolling your eyes to saying something to them to flipping any resistance could very rapidly, almost instantaneously, go up to deadly force because of the action counteraction that could go up there. And then once they're there, your life's on the line. If you survive that, then your future's on the line for your freedom and your money. uh, the whole legal system where they choose to operate will be against you. The media will be 100% against you. So I don't care what your background is. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what your values are. They will dip the paintbrush in a bucket and paint you with what's in the bucket, which is you are a Nazi, radical, extremist, racist.
Wow.
Even if you're black, you will be an Uncle Tom Oreo racist. That's just what they will paint everybody with immediately. Um, and that's what all the media will say. So they have a plan. This is not individuals out there exercising their First Amendment rights. These are people that are extremely well funded and extremely well trained.
I imagine the more we know about this, the less chance we'll have of getting involved in these things.
Yes, and
Because
yeah,
if we know more about this, know what to expect, know how to see the clues, we can leave Dodge and maybe miss the whole thing. As you mentioned earlier, the best gunfight is the one you missed. And yeah.
yeah, and so we'll talk about rules of engagement with these
Oh,
people. And I will tell you mine, what I've come up with, but and I'm not telling you you must adopt mine, but what I'm trying to encourage the students to do there at the conference is to come up with their own. Go through the thought process I did. They may come up with different triggers and different options and different decisions, but we don't want to be coming up with creating all those decisions under that kind of stress and pressure that we're under. We want to kind of go ahead and pre-select some of the things we're going to do and not do. And we'll talk about the aftermath as well. But we'll talk about what to do if you're in a restaurant and it happens, what to do if you're out in the street, what to do if you're in your car and they stop traffic, what to do if you have to use force, what to do if they break into your car. We'll talk about all those things.
if any of those things happen, it's too late to stop, pause, have a committee meeting with yourself and decide what you ought to be doing.
Yep.
You need to have that figured out ahead of time. And we'll
Yep.
probably talk about that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Wow. Ed, as always, I'm looking forward to having you here with us again. And so look forward to hearing you, seeing you, and having this wisdom because this is the kind of stuff that keeps us safe. This is the kind of stuff that keeps us out of the courtrooms. And so thanks for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you later this year.
Thanks, JB.